It is a privilege and a pleasure to be with all of you today. And I can tell you one thing, sitting down and listening yesterday and today, I've learned a lot. I'm a sponge. And as a sponge, I'm looking forward to learning more, and I want to thank you, the presenters, today. You know, when I was a kid, I had the privilege of growing in a family which was dedicated to the ocean, dedicated to our family. And it was very easy for us as a child, with my late brother and myself, to be in the water all the time in the Mediterranean Sea, every day. Sometimes I would even take my bag to go to school, and I didn't go to school. I went to the ocean. And I remember I would lift a rock, and under the rock, along the shoreline, there were octopus. And I would pick them up, turn their head inside down, beat them like the fisherman taught me to do it, to get rid of the skin, which is bitter. And I would put it aside. And then I go to school, and I was late. And that afternoon, I would go and get my 1, 2, 3 octopus, and I would put them on a plank in front of my house. And I would sell them because I needed money to buy marbles to play with my friends. And my best client was the chief of police. He would buy my octopus, and other people too. This is the kind of contact or relationship I had with nature. Today, I can take you to the same place where I grew up. We can lift rocks. There are no more octopus. When I was a child, I remember swimming in that environment, and there was less and less fish and more garbage. Today, we're finally coming to the point or the time where we're starting to understand what we're doing to our life support system. No water, no life. Next time you're drinking a glass of water, you're drinking the ocean. We are all connected to the ocean wherever we live, near the shore or way inland. And I'm French, I love wine. 99% of that wine is the ocean. Let's never forget that there is as much water in every one of us as there is water in a rose. We are made of the same stuff. It's a very exciting time because today we understand, but we have these problems that we need to address. And I'll mention them. The emission of CO2, climate change, the fact that we have the responsibility of the acceleration of the climate change. Climate change has always happened on the planet, but we are accelerating it. What is going to happen to hundreds of millions of people who are going to have to move? Where are they going to go? Where is the infrastructure? We need to address that issue. As the ocean is warming up in many parts of the world, the volume is expanding. The energy that the heat is producing is creating bigger storms. The hurricane force 2 will become force 3. We have to deal with the fact that along the coastline, we are destroying the coastal habitats where the majority of all forms of life will spend time, whether it is coral reefs or mangroves. And you've heard my son yesterday speak about that and the work that he's doing with his organization, Plant a Fish. There are people doing things, and I'm happy to say that the tradition in our family is to pass on the message, to pass on the baton, to keep going on and take care of our life support system, the ocean. We are also using the ocean as a garbage can, as a universal sewer. We relate to things we see, but we don't understand what is happening with all these chemicals and heavy metals that are making their way into the ocean. Whether you live in Peru, at the source of the Amazon River, or you live along the coastline, makes no difference. And if you drop something out there at the source of the Amazon, it will end up in the Atlantic Ocean. Everything is connected. We need to keep that in mind, no matter where we are. And we created borders. Whales don't have borders. Thanks to the space program, we can see that there is one planet, and when I look at maps or when I look at the Earth from space, I don't see the borders between Brazil, Argentina, or Colombia, or Peru. It's only one system. And we need to understand that as one system. We are overfishing. We are taking more from the ocean than the ocean can produce. Well, we did that on land. Many, many decades ago, we had nothing to hunt and gather, so we settled down, we became farmers. We're going to have to stop farming the ocean. Not in the ocean. We can farm many species today and export them wherever the demand is, provide those people with fresh fish, which they never had before, away from the ocean. And it's going to be economically very viable, and no emission of CO2 because no transportation. Everybody wins. There are solutions today, amazing solutions which we today can share worldwide with what I call the communication revolution. Everybody is connected. You can take a child in the middle of India or in Africa and put them in touch with every one of us. We can have live programs from underwater. We can have live programs from the space, like we had. So, one human species on the planet today. We're all connected, we can take care of each other, and that is our mission. It is totally unacceptable and can be resolved overnight that today, every day, there's between 4,000 and 5,000 children under the age of 5 who are dying because of no water or polluted water. That can be taken care of by our decision makers overnight. We can do it. Thanks to science, research, communication, today we know, we are aware. We are visual creatures. We relate to what we see. We need to emphasize that, as we've seen some very, very nice presentations here. What I'd like to do is to show you a little show that we're in the process of finishing that we are bringing here to Rio+20, which has to do with the one water cycle of planet Earth, the only water cycle that we know of in our solar system, where we can have the benefit of being a part of the planet and not a visitor. We have the choice, thanks to these beautiful tools, our hands and our brain, to avoid being one of those species that may disappear, like many species have disappeared and will disappear. We are the exception. And thanks to those tools, we can make our choice. We can plan our future. We can decide what we're going to do. And we need to do it as a community. But if you don't know, my father used to say, people protect what they love. And I kept saying, how can you protect what you don't understand? Now we do. Every day we know and learn more. And because of that knowledge, we are in a position to communicate with more and more people. One water system, everything is connected. Could we have the next DVD, please? Everything is connected. 70% of the planet is covered with water, but most of the water cycle starts from the top of the mountain. As it rains, it goes down into the ocean with everything we put into it. We all depend upon it. The quality of our life is connected to the quality of that water. Unfortunately, a lot of our garbage ends up into the water system. And whether it is going into those little streams, those big rivers, what we don't see coming from our big industries, our automobiles, our industries of all kinds, it runs off and goes right into the ocean. Not only with what we see, like plastics, but all these things we don't see, which are part of the water system, where it affects everything. When we have catastrophes like what happened in the Gulf, we see the oil, we see the dispersant, which are affecting the marine life. When we have fish farms, those fish farms are also affecting the ocean. And the dominant species, such as the beluga, naturally feed on the ocean floor. And then the dominant species that feed at the top of the food chain, the orcas, or the killer whales. They are the ones that are giving us all kinds of information. As these chemicals and heavy metals accumulate in the food chain, starting with the plankton, the foundations of all life, it goes all the way up to the big fish, the ones we catch, the ones we put in our plate. And the orcas are now, in certain parts of the world, having problems to reproduce, to have babies. It all starts at home. It all starts with our industries, with our decision makers. And those fish that we ultimately put in our plate, many of them are affected by those chemicals such as the PBDEs, which are fire retardants, which we find in the air we breathe, in our computer, in our carpet, in children's clothes. It is unbelievable the effect that we have. So we decided to be tested. Here, a mother and her child, together with members of the government of California and ourselves at Ocean Futures, we went through 32 tests of chemicals and 2 of heavy metals. In this one case, the fire retardant, which is accumulated in the child of this young lady, is astronomical, shocking. This is what we're doing to ourselves. The water system is telling us. We're now finding out, thanks to science, that 25% of the belugas that are found dead on the east coast of Canada have cancer. This is shocking, and it can change because now we know. They're dying. We find them dead on the beaches. How can we protect what we don't understand? In the middle of the Pacific, we found debris from 52 different countries, I counted, and all these little pieces are brought back by the birds that want to feed their babies with the eggs that are deposited on anything that floats in the middle of the ocean. Thousands and thousands of birds will never fly. Those baby birds will die with anywhere between 8 and 12 pieces of plastic in their stomach. This can change. Every one of us can help. These children in our program Ambassador of the Environment are the decision makers of tomorrow. They know, they learn, they will make better decisions. They can communicate with their parents. They can tell our decision makers that there's only one water system. Next time you drink a glass of water, you're drinking the ocean, which evaporates and is being pushed by the wind on the top of the mountain and makes the snow perfectly clean, which will melt down and go back into the ocean. Thank you. Education, putting the power in the hands of the children who are like sponges, who absorb the information which will never go away. We've been doing it for decades and we know it works. Reaching the heart of decision makers is the way that things can happen. We're putting people out there, whether it's industries or governments, and we can sit down with them and having a dialogue as long as you reach the heart. This works, and I'm happy to report that on several occasions I had the privilege of sitting down with some of those decision makers, both industries and governments, and they have changed. They have families, they have children, they care, but because they think in terms of the short term instead of the long term, they make mistakes under pressure. President Bush sat down with us, and as a result of showing him what was happening in the middle of the Pacific, the islands of northwestern Hawaii, 1,200 miles, 2,000 kilometers, he declared that at the time, on the 15th of June 2006, the largest protected piece of ocean on the planet. We've done the same thing with President Zedillo to protect the place where the whales reproduce. And he's made that happen. We have the opportunity to reach out and make those changes. But today, because of our ignorance or lack of understanding of the ocean, only 1% is protected. When on land, we've protected between 14 and 15%. Our presence here in Rio+20, is to ask our decision makers on the summit to protect 20% of the 65% of the open ocean which are unprotected, unregulated, and we need to protect it. And symbolically, we are asking them to protect 20% on Rio+20. We hope this will go in a decision-making process. It is time for that to happen, and we believe Rio+20 is the opportunity to see it happen. People who protect the ocean protect themselves. Thank you very much.